Okay, guys, we are back once again with United and Everything Football. This is episode 5, and we are so happy to have you all here once again. As usual, I do it with my man, Kwame Chukwuesiaku. Thank you so much, Kwame, for joining once again, my co-host and my analyst. How have you been, Kwame?
I've been doing great. United won, so yeah.
Y'all smile today. Yes. After that first 5 minutes scare that Nottingham Forest gave to us, I was, I wasn't watching the game live. I was actually somewhere, so I had it on my watch. For some minutes, then I could hear a beep. I could check, and Nottingham won. I'm like, okay, it's normal, typical United, drama United doing its own stuff. But then I hear another beep and I check Nottingham 2. I'm like, what is really happening? Now, something must be happening. So I remember texting you, I'm like, can you explain to me what's going on? Before I could play the game and everything all over again. But some way, somehow, we found a way to win.
And I told you, I have no idea.
You told me you had no idea. Absolutely no idea. I was actually shocked what was really happening.
See, it felt like a throwback to last season, the beginning of last season all over again, where nothing seemed to go our way. But then, fortunately, we turned it around.
We were able to turn it around. So, guys, we'll be looking into that game against Nottingham Forest, and also we'll do a very quick preview of the game against Arsenal at the Emirates, a place where we've not been able to win over the last 3 or 4 seasons. We've always left the Emirates with a loss. Arteta seemed to find a way to, win against us anytime we go to the Emirates. So we'll be previewing that game as well. And also we'll be doing a bit on the transfers. As we record this podcast, we have just 48 hours to end the transfers or to close the transfer window. So we'll be looking at United, our transfer business, and what to expect before. I'm sure by the time you are watching this, the transfer window should be closing or should have closed. We'll be looking at that and then any other thing that comes up in the podcast. Thank you so much for joining. We are going for a quick break. When we come back, we zoom straight into United Nottingham Forest, what really happened and what we should do better in that game. Stay tuned. All right, guys, we are back once again, and this is United and Everything Football. Thank you so much for joining. Remember to hit the subscribe button every single time. Yes, hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell every single time you join us. So, Kwame, United and Nottingham Forest, some way, somehow, the United spirits came back. I saw a stat that showed that if you're looking for the team in the Premier League era that has come back from 2-goal down to win the game is Manchester United. And it typified the character of the and everything. Ten Hag as well recorded his personal best, and that he had gone 31 games at home unbeaten. He was able to break his own record he had already set with Utrecht and also Ajax. So what did you make of the game? What really happened? You've had opportunity to watch the game, I'm sure not once, not twice. But what really happened? What do you make of the whole game and everything that we experienced on Saturday?
All right, so we had a few changes to our lineup. Some enforced. Luke Shaw has a long-term injury, unfortunately, and we are trying to look for a replacement for him in the market. So we'll get to that. Yes. So Diogo Dalot started on the left-hand side, and then Mason Mount also has a long-term injury. So we had to draft back Christian Eriksen into the starting 11. So those are the two major changes to the starting 11. But then we started off, I don't know how to call our starts, but it was just unbelievable what we were witnessing. Forest had scored 2 goals. I wouldn't call them fortuitous goals, but then I'll just say it was against the run of play. Yeah. Even as early as the game was, it was just against the run of play. They just had 2 innocuous chances and then they just put them away. And then we found ourselves 2-0 down. But then the response was very, very good. We had them under pressure. We pushed them into their half. Bruno Fernandes on the day was magnifico. He dragged us back almost. That's his leadership.
Exactly.
That's what when we are talking about a leader compared to the previous captain. That's leadership. That's somebody who is desperate to win, who puts it all on the line. He drags the team forward. He had a great shot from distance that was parried. Marcus Rashford did his thing on the wing, put the ball in the box. Eriksen got us back into the game. Casemiro missed an absolute sitter in the first half. I couldn't see that miss epitomizes what we actually are. We're not prolific. We miss certain chances that when he missed that chance, I said to myself, is it going to be one of those days again where everything's just going to go against us? But then we came back after halftime, and then a wonderful set piece. You could tell this was a training ground routine. It was something that just based off the reaction of the players after we had scored the goal, you could tell they were so happy with the outcome of that chance that led up to that goal. It was just perfect. And then it was just about getting ahead in the game. So we had lots of time on the clock to do so. Fortunately, Forest went down by a man. Things played in our favor. Marcus Rashford did his thing again on the left wing. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. Getting Rashford, he didn't even have his best games, but he still influenced the game from the left wing.
Absolutely.
He got into the box. He got chopped down. Rival fans were trying to make a whole lot out of that, but there was a clear, obvious penalty kick, and Bruno Fernandes just put it away. And then that's where we had a problem. We were supposed to comfortably see out the game against 10 men, but unfortunately, we seem to be hanging on.
I was actually coming to that. What seemed to be the problem? I have seen United go down, United as a club, go down 10 men and unable to control games at Old Trafford. Now, this time around, it was the other way around. The team we were playing had gone a man down. And in the dying embers of the game, it looked as if they had more men on the pitch than we did. And it looked as if there was absolutely nothing we could do to take hold of the game, control the game, dictate the pace of the game, and also show them that we are a far bigger club than they were. I find it very strange.
I put the blame entirely on the manager with respect to this, because there is supposed to be a clear instruction, irrespective of the fact that you expect so much from your players.
Absolutely.
You expect your players to be aware of certain situations in game and then in-game manage certain situations. But then you're on the touchline and you're supposed to, get them to snap out of the fact that we don't need to play on the transition. We don't need to cede possession to the opponents and try to hit them on the break. We are up by a man. We are Manchester United and we are playing at home. You have to be able to pass down instructions that would get to these players to be able to calm things down. There's no need to rush the ball forward anymore. There's an absolute need to keep the ball. Keep passing the ball, make the opponents work to be able to get the ball. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Things just spiraled completely out of control. It was just chaotic in the sense that we're just hanging on by the end of the day. That's just completely unacceptable, and I expect better from the coaching staff.
And one thing that makes it more worrying was that a day after we watched in Liverpool versus Newcastle United, where Liverpool went down by a man, and prior to that, they had gone down by a goal. And we all felt that, okay, looking at the St. James, looking at Newcastle, the team, looking at the atmosphere, looking at the fact that everything seemed to be going against Liverpool, they were able to keep themselves in the game, control the game, and took their moments. And it's something you barely see with Manchester United.
In as much as we're giving Liverpool their props, if we have to analyze the Newcastle game, I think Eddie Howe, as a manager, gave the game away to Liverpool.
Absolutely.
Let's just be honest. Absolutely. With his substitutions and his in-game management. So that's the thing. Sometimes it's not just about the players on the field of play and just
And the
hoping that
coaching.
something happens. It's about coaching. You have
Yeah.
to get your message across.
And that's the
Coaching
point I'm
decisions.
driving at. That's the point I'm driving at, the coaching and trying
Exactly.
to seize control of the game and trying to, make use of the numbers that you have or taking advantage of the advantage you have.
Exactly.
So I felt that on the day, the coach did not do what it takes to be able to seize control of the game. And I like what the way you describe it as being chaotic. We felt that, okay, we have an opportunity. We've gone up against them. We were leading by 3-2, and suddenly we were just playing the ball. We just got back into old habits, losing the ball, especially in dangerous areas, and giving them an opportunity to think that they could come back into the game. And I felt something. And looking at the experienced players we had on the pitch, I expected far more than that. We had Casemiro on the pitch at some point. We had Bruno Fernandes on the pitch. Licha Martinez was on the pitch as well. So if you have these players who have played at the highest level in various competitions, in various leagues, you'd expect far better from these players, and also from the coach, who always emphasize on trying to seize control and playing on the front foot and all of that. I felt very disappointed, and I feel it doesn't give the fans the confidence they need going into other games. We left this game, we won this game, but it created a lot more questions than providing us answers as a team. People kept asking themselves, okay, so what are we? What is our style? What are we trying to do? It creates a lot of questions. And I was on various platforms and people kept questioning. The win, yes, 3 points, okay. But people kept asking more questions than seeing a lot more solutions on the pitch, and it's something that I feel that the coach should touch on. But let's look at the various departments of the game. Let's look at the defense. Now we have Rafael Varane injured again, which is something we always expect. Varane won't give you. Unfortunately, that's what is coming.
Unfortunately, that's just what he is now.
That's what it's come to be. But we saw a midfield that was very familiar. How do you think the familiarity of these three guys aided in our win against Nottingham Forest? Playing Eriksen, playing Casemiro, playing Bruno.
In as much as I will give credit to Christian Eriksen for bringing us back into ironically, all our goals came from our central midfield trio. Yes. Casemiro, Bruno, and Christian Eriksen. But we still saw old problems from our previous two games, even within this game.
Yes.
Forest had a lot going for them on the break. Yes. Our midfield was still overrun on many occasions, and I put it down because it's clear now. It's not Mason Mount who played, it was Christian Eriksen who played. It was supposed to be our old midfield from last season that would exert more control. Yet, we're still being overrun. So, it's tactical. It's a tactical tweak to this season compared to last, where we want to, push up higher, push higher up the pitch, get more men pushing up to win the ball in the final third. And statistically, it's been proven that there is no team that has won the ball more frequently in the final third than Manchester United this season. So from that front, it's working. But then the problem is, when we get beat, the initial press, what's the reaction of the team? You find the team so high, the defense line so high up the pitch, and so many spaces in the midfield where potent runners tend to find space and cause chaos. So the tactical tweak hasn't necessarily worked yet, and it's at the detriment of the entire team. All you're hoping for is one of two things. Either that the boys get to understand things a bit more and implement things better, or we tweak things once again and say to ourselves, I'm talking about Ten Hag here, he tweaks things and says to himself, you know what, this is not really working. Right? So let's just go back to something more comfortable and more familiar, more conservative, rather than gang-ho like we're trying to do right now. So I think that's the issue that we're having right now. And then unfortunately, it just makes each and every single game of ours look chaotic.
Yeah.
All I'm praying for, right, is this is just a storm like last season, where earlier on it's all chaotic and and then things just simmer and gets a lot better. It looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better. We are just at that particular stage all over again.
But what would you do? I want to get to you personally. You know, like the coach, as we've all come to see, is trying a different style, trying to tweak things a bit. You know, trying to win the ball higher up the pitch. And if the initial press fails, you know, the chances of the opponents getting in behind and trying to, you know, hit you very fast, especially if they have fast runners to run through the channels and all of that. But what would you do personally as a coach? I mean, to deal with some of these situations, because it's quite worrying.
The first thing you ask yourself is, do you even have the tools to be able to change what you want to do? If you constitute your entire team around playing a certain style, right, you may not necessarily have the men to be able to play something else.
Absolutely.
And that seems to be the constitution of our midfield right now. We seem to have more players who are more 8s than 6s, you know, more players who are more offensive than defensive.
Yes.
Exactly. The only players that are currently available who have any defensive nows to them, it's Casemiro, obviously. I'm talking about the midfielder, Casemiro, and to an extent, McTominay, whom I've always said is never a 6. So if you have the men to be able to alter things, I'd rather play a double 6 and a 10 than rely on always playing literally 2 10s and a 6, not even 2 8s. We are looking to play 2 10s and a 6. That's the slight alteration. Last season, we were playing more of Eriksen as a, you know, an 8, proper 8, not just bombing forward all the time, exerting his control in midfield alongside Casemiro. But then now we are looking to bomb Mount and Bruno forward. You're looking to bomb Eriksen and Bruno forward, and it leaves Casemiro all isolated there. And he doesn't seem to have the legs to cover the entire
blade of
midfield.
Exactly. Along that line,
Exactly. So the solution doesn't actually present itself at the club right now. The solution is probably in the market. And we still have 48 hours to go. And fortunately, we'll get to transfers. Fortunately, finally, we have some strong links to Sofyan Amrabat. So if we can get him in, you can alter the tactics a bit.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So on that score, let's zoom quickly straight into the game that we'll be playing. This will be a major big game, traditional big game. With all due respect to Tottenham Hotspur, but this is going to be a major big game. There are a lot of things not going for us, especially when we go away from home. A very strong team at home. In fact, we are entering September, right? It's going to be 12. I think it's 12 months since we actually lost a game at Old Trafford. But the story away from Old Trafford is something very different. Unfortunately for us, we've not looked so good away, especially against the top clubs. This season, we're hoping that things will be a lot more better. But unfortunately, our first game away against Tottenham Hotspur, we lost by 2-0. Now, we are going to the Emirates to play against Arsenal, team that were title contenders last season, played very well. This season haven't had, you know, even though they've not lost a game, they are having their own problems as well, trying to fit in a lot of new players into their setup. They have Kai Havertz now. They have Rice in their setup. Unfortunately, Julian Timber is out for the rest of the season. If what the reports are saying about the injuries is anything to go by. So Arsenal have a problem of their own. Now we, as United, also have our problem of our own. But let's look at this game historically, how it's been between these two sides. What's your general impression as a United fan based on all of these factors what's your impression going into this game?
All right, so I grew up in the Fergie Wenger era, so I don't like Arsenal. If I'm to rate the teams I do not like the most in England, Liverpool has to happen by default.
Of course.
So they are right up there. But then Arsenal is like a very, very close second because growing up watching the Invincibles and watching the peak Arsenal teams back then.
Yeah, the team that was competing against, right?
Yeah. They didn't always do it like against us. Yeah. We had the upper hand most of the time, but then we had to kick them off the park to be able to win most of our games. So yeah, it's but then over the past 10 years, fast forward over the past 10 years, I think they finished above us in the league table about 7 times out of the past 10 seasons, like post Alex Ferguson. Yeah. So, and then at the Emirates in recent history, over the last 5 games, we haven't won a game there. I think we've just managed a single draw. Prior to that, going to Arsenal was like playing against our babies. We'd win anyway. Home and away, we just win. There was always a style, a way of, Patrice ever would say, there's always a way you have to beat these guys. Just soak up the pressure and hit them on the break and just finish them off. They just make elementary mistake after elementary mistake. But that's the old Arsenal. There's a new Arsenal, a new wave flowing at Arsenal right now. They are, let's be honest, they're in a better situation than we are, even points-wise and personnel-wise as well as confidence-wise. I think they're in a better situation. What they do find themselves in is having to deal with problems that their own coach is creating for himself. He's supposed to just go about playing players in their best positions, but he's trying to be a Pep by playing a centre-back at left-back and a centre-back at right-back and a central midfielder at right-back. And I don't know what is going on over there. I don't know what he's trying to achieve, but I think he's just overthinking the situation. Whereas with us, we are struggling to even put our best players on the pitch because of so many injuries. Absolutely. We are not playing fluid, confident football. We haven't had an inspiring result so far, despite the fact that points-wise, it's not that bad. We're only 1 point behind Arsenal, but then going into this, they are absolute clear favorites, but then see, we can go in there and do one over them. I don't see why it's not possible, because if the likes of Fulham can go there and give them a game and then pull something out of the hat despite going down by a man for a long spell of the game, I don't see why we cannot go there and with some good degree of confidence and feel like we can get a result. Unfortunately, ever since Ten Hag took charge, this is where the problem is. Our away form against top sides, like you reiterated, has not been great. So that stacks up against us. But then, see, there's always an end to something, We are not always going to go away to big teams, in quotes, and then lose games. Sunday could be a good start, a good time to start winning games on the road, to be able to put our season back on track before the international break. It always hurts to lose a big game before the international break. I don't look forward to
because the pain lingers on for 2 weeks before you can make a main. It takes 2 weeks before you can make
trolls and insults and drama. And we stand to 4 points behind them and probably even further behind City if we lose the game. So if nothing at all, we should be able to get a point out of the game at the least, just to keep things tight before the international break. I feel like our season really kicks off after the international break. It's been chaotic from the transfers, the style of play, to the injuries. It's like one bad thing after another. Like, it's just a bit too much right now. Let's just get this week done, regather ourselves, right? And then go again after the international break. Hopefully, we don't have any injuries when we do come back.
All right.
Yeah, but then, see, we can get results, Kwame. We can actually go there and get results.
I am curious to find out what has been our problem away from home. What do you think has accounted for that? I've heard a coach say many times that we've not been able to show a lot more personality when we go away from home. We've lacked personality. We failed to impose ourselves on games and all of that.
And we don't do what we're supposed to do over the course of 90 minutes.
Exactly.
But then the question is
concentration. Even given the game against Arsenal last season, it was almost 2-2. The game was almost ending in a draw, and then some way, somehow, we soaked so much pressure, we could do nothing. And you could clearly see that we're begging to concede at the dying embers of the game. It was so clear, and that's what he's right when he says we lack personality, because you clearly see a team that's lacking something and lacking to show, not being able to show something. Even aside the fact that we lost to Arsenal 3-2, we lost 6-3 to City at the.
What's the coach doing about this, Kwame?
That's the problem. I feel he's looked clueless on days where we are being hammered. He's looked absolutely clueless. He clearly has no idea what
it just can't be the fault of the team. Sometimes you are supposed to be conservative when you need to be conservative. Sometimes you're supposed to, but I think he puts a lot of responsibility on the players and expects a lot. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, when the results like that do happen, back to back to back to back, we've got to start then asking you, the manager, the question that what are you doing about this particular situation?
Exactly.
The only pass I'd give him is that on the road, very often you need certain players to be able to get you results. Manchester United has not had a number 9, a proper number 9 ever since Erik ten Hag took charge.
Yeah.
If we had a Harry Kane or a Haaland, an X-factor center forward, right? Very often on the road, these players win games for you by the odd goal, even when you are not playing well.
Yes.
He hasn't had that kind of center forward available to him ever since he took charge. It's been over 12 months as Manchester United manager, and he still doesn't have a number 9 he can call his own on the football pitch. It's the only pass I'd give him. It's not even a strong pass, but it's the only pass I'd give him, because certain key players do win points for you, especially on the road, not just at home. But in terms of the character that he speaks of, criticizing the players very often, he has to take some responsibility himself as a coach and fix this away form, because it just can't be down to the boys. It's
very important we get this fixed. I mean, you can't have this superb home record where I think in the league we after losing to Brighton, drawing against Newcastle United, and I think I don't know if there was another draw.
We've won 17 of our home games out of our last 20 Premier League games.
You can.
If you're winning 17 out of 20, and basically you've lost just one, it's 17 wins. I think 17 wins, 2 draws, and a loss.
Exactly.
This
and the 2 draws were Newcastle United and Southampton, and that was it. We beat every other team. Yeah, we drew Southampton 0-0. We went down by a man against Southampton, and we drew that game 0-0. So if you remember,
I think it's more like since our last defeat.
Yes.
Point of correction. Since our last defeat, we've played 20 Premier League games. Yes. We've won 17, and then we've won 3.
Yes, because we've gone against Leeds United. I remember that game
exactly.
Right.
So it's been superb.
Wrap up quickly. We need to go to the transfers. Wrap up quickly.
Yeah, we just need to get better results away from home, starting against Arsenal. We have to start against Arsenal.
We have to start quickly against Arsenal. So it's very, very important that we win that game. All right. So quickly, let's get into the transfers. So if you are watching this, the transfer window might have shut, or the transfer window is about to get shut. All right, so already we've signed Rasmus Højlund, we've signed Andre Onana, we've signed Mason Mount. We've had a lot of players also leaving the club. Dean Henderson, a couple of players also about to leave. We're still expecting some incomings, because clearly there are some areas within the squad. We've lost some players to injury. So our first choice and second choice left back have all gone down with long-term injuries. So clearly the news is that we are on the market for a left back. The names out there currently is Marc Cucurella from Chelsea, as well as Sergio Reguilón, and also Nico Tagliafico is also are all names on the list. But as it stands, it looks like Marc Cucurella is the player that we are hoping to sign before the window shuts. Or I'm sure by the time we are watching this, we might have already signed Cucurella. Another player we're also looking out to sign is Sofiane Amrabat. So news that came later this afternoon shows that United is doing everything possible to get Sofiane Amrabat. And clearly there are issues. Kwame, what's the issue? What's the problem? Explain.
All right, so it's a speculative explanation I'm going to give. I can't even base it on facts because what I'm going to say, some fans don't believe it, other fans believe it, but then based on how the window has played out, I think personally I'm starting to believe it. It's actually true if the club that say we have FFP issues. Because if we didn't, it wouldn't make sense penny pinching at this point in time, we're scratching down the barrel right now, trying to get some pennies to make some deals. It doesn't make sense, but it's clear. It's clear that we have been mismanaged for quite some time now. We have been buying players, expensive players, making huge transfers, and then barely making sales in most seasons over the past decade. And I think it's finally caught up with us. In the sense that Metal has come to meet a mess that he has to clear up. FFP regulations allows you to spend a certain amount of money on transfers, on wages of players, on agents, and as well as the staff, a percentage of a specific percentage of your revenue. Manchester United makes loads of money, but then besides sponsorships and all those other things, another way of making money is by actually selling players. But then we put these players on huge wages, and then offloading these players becomes a problem. So more often than not, we're not able to do so. Finally, we are at the point where we have made our 3 main acquisitions quite early in the window, but then trying to add up to that is a problem because we have to offload players. We have had to offload players, yet we've not been able to offload enough players to bring in enough cash to balance the books to be able to make further purchases. So here's the case where we are trying to do a couple of loan deals for a couple of positions, one of which is an emergency position because of, like you said earlier, we've lost our 2 left backs long term and we need to, get in somebody on loan. But then the priority position happens to be central midfield, and we can't even get 17, 20, 30 million pounds to sign Sofiane Amrabat on a permanent basis. And what we are trying to do is give them a loan with possibly an obligation to buy or an option to buy next season. So that's where we are. And then let's not just forget this. We are also signing a backup goalkeeper. We let Dean Henderson go to Palace. That brought in some good cash. I think it's Banyede, or I'm not going to butcher his name, but then he's a lad from Fenerbahce, and he's highly rated. And I think he's going to be a good backup goalkeeper. Onana has been called up to the Cameroon national team. If it does honor the call-up, what's going to happen is if in January, if he lives for 4 or 5 weeks, it's either Heaton or this young lad would probably have to step up in his stead. So overall, honestly, if you ask me to sum up our transfer window so far, because I'm going to ask you that question in return. If you told me that we were going to end this transfer window signing 6 players, and the names of these players were Onana, Mason Mount, who else?
Rasmus Højlund,
Cucurella on loan, and Sofiane Amrabat and Banyede from Fenerbahce. And these were the 6 players, as many as 6 players. And these were the 6 names that you threw at me at the beginning of the window and said, these are the players United are going to end up with that. I'd say, oh, that's a terrible transfer. What the hell are you talking about? I mean, besides Onana, whom I absolutely wanted at this football club, none of the other names are names that I ever perceived or thought would be the players that would sign for Manchester United. I get the reasons why we have to sign players in those particular positions. But in terms of whom the coach prefers in those positions are highly, highly questionable. And we would have to use the entire season to be able to assess them and then come to a conclusion as to whether they were the right decisions or not.
All right. Okay.
How would you rate this window? If we ended up with these 6 players, how would you rate this window over 10?
I actually expected a lot more. Not in number, but I mean in terms of the quality that we are getting. I've never hit my views with regards to players like Mason Mount. I felt we could have gotten a lot more better, but I sort of got an idea of what the coach is trying to do. So I gave the coach the benefit of the doubt. I expected a far better midfield option than Mason Mount. I expected a far better strike option than Rasmus Højlund. But then, like I'm saying, you look at what the coach is trying to do, or the idea that behind the signing, and you're like, okay, let me give. So my general assessment, and I'll do this in, let's say, 30 seconds because our time is fast spent. My thought is simple. I feel that the coach has sought to explain to us what he's trying to do, the kind of football he wants to play. It's clear. He says he wants to play quick transition football, play dynamic, and be on the front foot, right? So you clearly see these players as, okay, players that sort of feel, if you look at Rasmus Højlund and his style of play, very athletic, very strong, very mobile. Mason Mount, similar characteristics. So you clearly he's looking for players that are very athletic, very quick, and are very mobile. And these are players that sort of fit that. Clearly, yes, Casemiro is a bit leggy and is unfortunately doesn't have it and all of that. So these are some of the things that you clearly look at. So unfortunately, our time is fast spent.
Don't allude. Rate the window over 10.
6 over 10.
Fair. I give it the same.
All right. We wish we had enough time to be able to go through this. But guys, thank you so much for joining us again on this beautiful podcast. Thank you so much, Kwame. Unfortunately, we can't go through everything. But in our next episode, which will be an international break, we'll be looking at the transfers in general and be doing a lot more extensive analysis on that. Thank you for joining us once again. Remember to do what? Hit what? The subscribe button. Thank you so much, and we'll see you same time next week on this beautiful podcast. Bye-bye to you, and have a great time.